Good evening and welcome again to Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. And as you know, we like to go off on flights of fancy sometimes on this show. So tonight we're heading out into deep space. Our guest tonight, Michelle Nichols, the Director of Public Observing at the Adler Planetarium. Michelle, it's so nice to have you back. You've been here before.
It's so fun to be back. Thanks for having me.
And the universe never goes away.
The universe never goes away. It got a little bigger in the last time since I was here. So.
It's always getting a little bigger, right? It's
Exactly.
always expanding, right?
Exactly.
And someday we just won't even be able to see it anymore. It will expand so far.
Yeah, things will be too far apart, but we're talking really far in the future.
Billions
So
of years.
Don't even worry about it one little second.
It's like Carl Sagan. Remember
Yes,
billions and billions.
my hero. Yes, yes.
He was pretty cool, actually. I think he popularized science on television.
He definitely did. He was so good at bringing tough subjects to using normal language and just bringing them to everybody on the Johnny Carson show and various other shows. He is the reason I'm doing what I do.
Really?
Yes. So people ask me, so how did you get interested in all this? And I said, well, I used to say immediately watching Carl Sagan's TV show Cosmos. I was 8 years old, but I have to wind the clock back just a little bit and seeing Star Wars in the theater when I was 4. I vividly recall the Death Star exploding and everybody cheering. And then my mom is an avid Star Trek fan, so she got me into watching the TV show.
Yes.
And but yeah, Cosmos, I didn't totally understand everything because I was 8, but he was so engaging and so calm in all of his explanations, and it was so neat.
And you could see that he loved it. That
Yeah.
was, it came through.
Yeah, definitely. And I try to model what I do after what he did, which is, yeah, you might use a little jargon, but make sure you explain it, or maybe don't use any jargon at all, if possible, and just let the enthusiasm shine through. So.
Well, and your job actually is somewhat similar because you're talking to the public about what are actually fairly complicated subjects. So
Right.
you have to follow Carl's example,
I
right?
do, and I also get the great fun of, I'm going to guess, about 95% of the people I encounter, they've never looked through a telescope before.
Wow.
And it's really amazing that first experience is with one of my telescopes. And that's a hefty weight to carry. You want to make sure that the experience is as good as possible. And so I want to give them something cool. So we'll do stuff like, of course, when Jupiter or Saturn are in the sky, make sure we're looking at that. Or we surprise people. A lot of the observing we do is of the sun.
The sun.
Yes,
Now,
safely.
how do you do that?
How do we do that? I actually have a prop here. And this is a filter that we put on the front of the telescope. And the filter blocks out most of the light from the sun before it even gets into the telescope. The front of the filter is reflective as well. So it'll reflect the light away and keep it from passing through. So I've got a really bright flashlight. So see how bright it is. And so I'm going to put it behind the filter. And do you see anything?
No.
Just, yeah.
Oh, there, and just a little bit.
Just a little barely, yep. So if we just put it right here, you might barely see something, but on the camera, even if you don't see anything, that's the point. So it's really cutting down on the light quite a bit. So this allows us to just get just enough light in to make the sun safe to look at. And so most of the observing we do is with the public, with the sun during the day.
Now, could you use that for an eclipse as well? Because they always tell you, don't look at an eclipse.
For a solar eclipse. So yes, for a solar eclipse, you can look at the sun with one of these on your telescope, but if it's during totality, meaning you're seeing a total solar eclipse where the moon 100% blocks the sun, then you can look directly at it. You don't want to wear solar glasses or anything at that point because...
Interesting. So at totality.
At totality, yes.
You can take off the glasses.
Only at totality, yes.
Now, why is that?
Because the moon has totally blocked out the sun.
But you still see the corona.
You can see the corona, which is that wispy stuff on the outside. And but that is only about as bright as the full moon in the sky. And so that is safe to look at. But as soon as the sun reappears, a little bit starts to reappear, you put those solar viewing glasses back on. And if people are wondering, wait, when's the next one? When can I see this? April 8th, 2024 is the next total solar eclipse. Not total here in the Chicago area, but only about 3 hours away. You can drive to the Indianapolis area, and the path is going to run from southwest to northeast. So up through Texas, Arkansas, southern Illinois, Indiana, Cleveland, Ohio area, east of there. So it's going to be a really great eclipse, and it's going to last about twice as long as the last one did.
So twice as long. How long is that?
About 4 minutes
Really?
for totality. So the entire eclipse is a couple hours-ish. So
now I've heard that people who see totality are moved by it to the point where once you've seen it once, you have to go again.
Yeah, you got the bug. Yes. Yeah.
So what is it about totality that does that?
It's really hard to explain. I've seen totality. It was about 20 years ago, and I can only describe it as a hole in the sky.
Wow.
And it was so moving because at that point you feel like you are connected between you, the moon, the sun. There is a direct line at that point between all three of those objects, you, moon, and sun. And you can see something in the sky that you normally cannot see. There's no way to see the corona any other way.
Well, that's right. You would never see the corona because the sun's just too bright.
The sun's too bright, yeah. Yeah, it's really neat. If anyone ever has even the inkling of wanting to go see totality, you must. And then, like you said, once you see one, you got to go, okay, when's the next one? When are we going?
Well, I know one of the people who works on our show, actually the person who contacted you to be here, has been to eclipses and seen totality. So maybe I can convince her to let me tag along for the ride next time.
There you go.
It's only a few years away, 2024.
Take public perspective on the road.
There you go. And I might be able to even borrow that filter from you so we can point the camera.
Absolutely, no problem.
Wow.
Yeah,
actually,
actually,
let me take a look at that.
Yeah, actually,
that's such a cool thing.
people do just get that you can buy. It's the not research grade, but really high grade film, and you can make a filter for your camera. My husband made one for his, and you just put it on the front of your camera, block out the light from ever getting into your camera, and away you go.
And I see it has dents in it from the flashlight that you've
Yeah,
been poking it with.
exactly. Yep,
Yeah.
yep, not a problem. It's completely safe, so I can touch it.
Yeah,
It's not
it
going to hurt
doesn't
it.
matter, right?
No. But we have our solar observing that we do every day that it's clear out. We do it at the Adler. We have volunteers who take our telescopes out and have folks look at the sun.
And how many? So in a day when the sun is shining and you want to be able to show it to people, how many volunteers and how many telescopes really more important?
It depends on how many volunteers we have, but generally we'll have 2 telescopes out.
Okay.
We'll have a few hundred people that may come by and take a look. It's really fun.
And so they're out all day, so you can just come by
They're out
anytime.
from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Well, it's still long enough, 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, before, like in the summer, before it gets really crazy hot or anything.
Right.
So, and then for our Scopes in the City program, we take telescopes out into the community. And some of the observing we do for that is of the sun. So we'll do it at Chicago Public Library branches or various other places in the city, occasionally in the suburbs too. And some of our Scopes in the City programs are at night as well.
So how do people find out about this? I assume it's on the website,
Yep,
right?
it's on the website.
Which is?
www.adlerplanetarium.org.
That should be easy to remember.
Exactly. And then just search for Scopes in the City, and you can see when we've got scopes out and where we'll be.
You know, I have to start doing that. I know we've talked about this before, you know, and you think about it, and then it's gone from your head, right? So now the third time is the charm, right?
And one of these days, maybe on a future show, I can bring a telescope by. We can show everybody how to use a telescope.
Oh.
That'd be pretty fun, I think.
Well, I wouldn't think that would be hard, but you know, you're right. Last time I looked through a telescope was many years ago. I would have to think about it.
Yeah, how a telescope works, it kind of demystifying the whole thing, because they're really not hugely complicated. Some of these you're talking about designs that are from the 1600s. And
Galileo.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Galileo and his telescope. He didn't invent the telescope, but he made the telescopes that existed at the time better.
Yeah.
And so 1608, the telescope was invented. By 1609, which is when Galileo was making his observations and word was getting around about telescopes.
He was the Bill Gates of his time.
Exactly. Well, he really, he knew a lot of people. He wrote everything down. He let everybody know what he was doing. So he made sure that we got the word out about what he was looking at in the sky. And it was effective.
Yeah, except the Catholic Church kind of took a dim view. But that's another story.
That's another story, yeah.
Right. So you brought another very interesting prop here that I
Yes.
want to take a look at.
Yeah, so
this is called
this is called, well, it's a portion of an item called a thin-sat.
Thin-sat, as in
So,
thin satellite.
Thin satellite. So if all goes well, a rocket will launch from NASA's facility at Wallops Island in Virginia, carrying, essentially, think of it as a loaf of bread and a bunch of slices of bread. This is a slice of bread. This is a satellite. So we are going to be the first planetarium in space.
And it looks nothing like what I would imagine a satellite to look
No,
like.
that's the nice thing, is satellites can come in various shapes and sizes. These days, the size is really key because satellites are getting smaller. We're getting really good at designing and building what are called CubeSats. And so these are...
Which I assume are a cube.
Yeah, so the initial size is about 4 inches by 4 inches by 4 inches.
Wow.
And then you can put cubes together. You can make cubes of cubes, you can make lines, you can make all sorts of things, whatever you need. In this case, it's a bunch of slices inside this loaf. And for ours, this is going to be looking at the Earth. So we had students from ITW Spear Academy.
That's a high school, right?
It's a high school. And so we were invited to take part in this ThinSat program. So there are other organizations that took part, and I believe we are the only planetarium that it was involved. And so they designed circuit boards. So these are custom-built circuit boards and custom-made. And on this circuit board, let me see if I can get it. There we go. So there's a circuit board underneath that. And so here's the one for going on top of that. And then another one goes in here as well. And then at the top, sorry, I'm going to turn it.
So did the high school students, did they design the circuit boards itself, or they designed the overall satellite?
So they designed what the satellite was going to do, and I believe they took part in the programming and helped with the design of everything. Basically, get them involved in everything we can.
Oh, that's great.
And so there are sensors here. There's a third one that would go here. And you put this here, and the sensors peek out the little windows. And they'll look at Earth, because their question was, let's say we are looking at planets around other stars. How do you know what a planet with life on it is going to look like? What does the life look like? What are the landforms? What do they look like? And so first things first, you test and see what Earth looks like, because we know we have life, and so we have landforms. So use Earth as the model, and have the sensors look at Earth, and you know where the satellite's going to be, and the sensors will periodically, as the whole stack turns, periodically it'll face Earth, and so we'll know where it is, we'll know which way it's turning, and the sensors will look at mountains, they'll look at water, probably lots and lots of water. They'll look at clouds. And so we'll get a sense of what colors are coming into the sensors and seeing what all that looks like. And all this was from the minds of high school students.
So they came up with the concept of what this thing would do.
Yeah, with some assistance from Adler staff.
Sure.
And yeah, but it's really fun that we've never
I have
done
to take
this
a look at
before.
this thing. So this is, you know, I'm a geek at heart, so just being able to hold this thing is really cool.
So the logo that's in there is Far Horizons. That's the name of our high altitude ballooning program.
I see. I probably can't get a shot of that, but Far Horizons.
Yep.
Right there, Far Horizons. Yeah.
And so we've taken it a little farther. So instead of launching a high altitude balloon, we'll launch a satellite into space. And so Far Horizons, when we launch our high altitude balloons, we use them as test platforms for cameras, sensors, other things that we might want to eventually launch into space. So
now this seems so flimsy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm astonished that this would survive the rigors of outer space. I mean,
It doesn't have to survive for long. That's the good thing. When you put something small up into space, you don't want it up there for a long time. So these things are only designed to be up for a few weeks.
And what happens then? They
It
come
will
back.
fall into Earth's atmosphere and
burn
burn up. Yep, yep. So we're not littering space.
Poor buddy.
That's okay. It's all right. It will give its all for science.
It will, yes.
And engineering.
So I'm interested in the concept behind it. The high school students themselves thought about colors first. I mean, and if I were thinking about how do you know if a planet has life, I would probably think, well, does it have an atmosphere? If so, what's the makeup of the atmosphere? Measure the temperature of the planet. Does it have water? That sort of thing. But they thought about colors. And do colors tell you more or less the same thing?
They can. So it would be a variety of information that would tell you if someplace has life. It would be what colors are coming and what wavelengths we're talking about, because different materials reflect light differently and absorb light differently. And so you can use what you know about life around here to then help inform what you might learn about a planet around another star. So what's really neat is NASA several years ago launched a spacecraft that once it was done doing its main mission, they kind of like, well, we have this spacecraft, and so what are we going to do with it? And so they flew it pretty far past Earth so that Earth was just a pixel or so wide in its camera view. And so they said, we're going to take a look at that and see what does a planet that is only about a pixel wide, that has life on it, what does that look like to this satellite? Because if we find planets, well, we have found planets around other stars, if we think one of them might have life, they're only going to be about maybe a pixel wide. So what do they look like? And so you can compare and then get more information and more information. Does it have an atmosphere? Does it have, is it at the right temperature to maybe have liquid water on the surface? If it is, does it have liquid water on the surface? What color is it? What else can you learn?
Right. So, would that water have to be blue? I guess it might be some other color. I would think it's possible.
It could be. I mean, it's chances are water works the same way elsewhere. And so, but that's another question. I mean, we need to check that out, because right now we have an N of 1. We have Earth.
Yes. And being a scientist, N is the sample size.
Exactly.
Right?
So we have a sample size of 1.
Yes.
So.
Hard to draw broad conclusions from a sample size of 1.
Exactly. Yep.
And as we know from the other side of physics, not from the universal side, but from the particle side, the subatomic side, that reality is very flexible. It's what you're looking for. And in fact, it was just an experiment, you may have just read about this, that you know, we all know wave-particle duality. If you look for a wave, you see a wave. If you look for a particle, you can see a particle. But it turns out the two observers observing the same wave-particle at the same time will see two different things.
It's amazing.
Yes, so it actually has no fundamental reality that they can point to, because it's this, what they call superposition. It's multiple things at the same time.
At this point, brain cells are melting right there in the audience, and it's okay. I tell people a lot, if I am giving you a piece of information that just might be, oh my God, how can I process that? It's all right, because the universe is really amazing. And
you can remind them that even Einstein refused to believe quantum physics, because he said, oh, that's too weird.
Right, it's too odd, too...
It's too odd, it can't possibly be true.
Right, yeah.
And he said famously, God does not play dice with the universe.
Yeah, he didn't like all the probability.
Right, nah, that can't be right. Yeah, you guys are crazy. Right, and it turns out, no, it really was actually the way it is.
I guess maybe don't take Einstein to the track and have him pick your horses, I guess.
Yeah. Actually, there's an interesting aside about Einstein. People have this image of him with the wild hair, and, you know, this really eccentric guy. And it turns out that was an image he cultivated later in life. As a young man, he was quite dapper.
Yes, he was.
But as he became more and more famous as the wild eccentric, he figured he needed to look the part.
Right, right. Unfortunately, he did the job a little too well. And now that's what people think scientists all look like.
Right.
And so they think it's an older guy with crazy hair. And you ask kids to draw a scientist, and they'll draw a guy with a lab coat with crazy hair. And then I might walk in the room, or one of my colleagues, one of my female colleagues, or one of my younger colleagues might walk in the room and go, oh, wait a minute.
You can't be a scientist.
Oh, you are a scientist. Oh, wait, can I be a scientist too? So yeah, it's kind of demystifying scientist because a lot of it was for show with him. So yeah.
Well, and demystifying science, that's something that you do for the planetarium. And I think in today's day and age, that seems to be a particularly important thing to do, to let people know that, we have, it's politics gets into everything, but, science is not the enemy. Science is our friend.
Right.
And science teaches us things that are useful to know.
Yeah.
So do you encounter resistance when you're out doing this for the public?
It's not resistance. People express wonder and awe. Some people cry when they look through the telescope for the first time and they see the rings of Saturn, or they see moons of Jupiter.
Yeah.
Hands down, they have absolutely cried, screamed, yelled. I've gotten hugs. I've been given cupcakes. It's amazing. But the thing is, I know that every single person that I encounter, we don't think the same way, and I'm not trying to make people all think like I think, but we all can find common ground. Looking through that telescope, it's pretty cool. And we may not agree with the age of the Earth or whatever it is, but it's okay. We don't
You don't have to.
No, we don't have to. Yeah.
And I would think, just as you described it, just having that experience of actually seeing the rings of Saturn would be pretty cool. And
Saturn is a place through my telescope, and I will show it to you. I will bring what you've only seen on the internet and with pictures in a magazine or a book. I will bring that to your eyes. And that's what motivates me every single day. Come up with those really awesome experiences. How can I get eyeballs up to an eyepiece, either at the Adler, out in the community? Just how can we have these grand telescope experiences, but have it be personal for the person? Like, those photons on your eyeball were meant for you, and you are having that experience. And it's the most amazing job you could ever possibly imagine.
it's really too bad you have to suffer through this day after day, right?
I know, I know.
And drag yourself out of bed to go to this awful job.
Oh gosh, we used to visit when I was a kid. We were members for several years. And I still pinch myself when I walk through the door and go, I used to visit here. And I've worked there for almost 24 years. And it never gets old. It never gets old.
I would imagine that. Well, because for one thing, the science is always changing.
Yeah.
So there's always something new to know.
Absolutely.
Right? And something new to convey to the public who you meet, right?
Exactly, exactly. And new ways of communicating information, new ways of displaying information, new shows that we can bring to people, like our new Imagine the Moon show that opened in January to explore the moon in ways that haven't been presented in planetarium shows before.
Now, you'd think the moon, of all places,
Yeah.
that we've probably done it all and seen it all. But
Nope. Nope.
Here
We've got some brand new, like, cutting edge research that's presented in a really engaging, accessible way in the show.
So tease me. Give me just a hint. What's
Okay.
some of the new
All right.
stuff?
So imagine, if you will, the early
Coming
Earth.
right out of Carl Sagan.
Yeah.
Imagine if you will.
The early Earth. It's spinning so quickly that it has kind of squashed itself at the poles. Suddenly, something about Mars size comes by and smashes into the Earth. And we have a pretty good sense that the moon was made through an impact, but the prevailing hypothesis was that it was a glancing blow, and what came off formed the moon. But if that's true, then Earth and moon should be made of a lot different stuff than they are in reality. In reality, they're made of almost the same stuff, and that really shouldn't be the case.
I mean, if some other body had hit, it should be made of Earth and whatever this
and
other
whatever
body.
that is, yeah.
Right.
So what they think happened was called a synestia, which is spinning Earth going really fast. This Mars-sized thing vaporized both of these objects. And so what came together was the Earth and the moon.
Interesting.
And
that it
so-
completely destroyed the early Earth.
Vaporized it into a cloud of debris, and melted debris at that. And this stuff mixed together. And some stuff clumped over here, and some stuff clumped over there, and this clump was bigger, and that clump was a little smaller, and now you've got the Earth and the moon.
Wow.
It's really cool.
That is an amazing story.
Yeah, it's it's basically, it's really cutting edge because this is the first time that this has been presented in a planetarium show. But we also present more accessible information about how we viewed the moon during history, how it's been written about. We use items from our collection to illustrate this. So and I'm a hard person on planetarium shows. I'll tell you if I don't like them. This is one of the best shows I've ever seen.
And you're allowed to say that you don't like them. They don't fire you when you say that, right?
Well, no.
No.
But
No.
it's I can be honest with my colleagues if
They
I
respect your opinion, right?
No, but it's really good. I highly recommend folks come and see it.
And how long is the moon show going to be?
As far as I know, for the foreseeable future.
Like a permanent exhibit kind of thing.
Yep.
Oh, that gives me even more reason to want to go down there and see it.
Absolutely. You
Yes.
can see our 10-foot wide moon globe that we have,
Wow.
and it's really amazing too.
And this is one of the things about Chicago, living here, that there are these astonishing places to go. And you know how it is, as a native Chicagoan, you just don't think about them very often. Oh, the tourists go there. It's like, but no, this is a really cool place that all Chicagoans should go visit.
We have an embarrassment of riches in Chicago. Most cities, many cities don't have such a concentration of art, science, history, and
It's all very close together,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You can go to the aquarium and the planetarium and the field museum all in the same trip.
Some people do it all in the same day. I don't know how, but they do. I've heard of this.
It's an endurance thing. They want to say
Yep.
they did all three.
Right.
It seems to me you'd kind of miss something in the hurry of getting through them all. But so what else? What else come up? We only got a few minutes left. So what else should people be thinking about with the planetarium?
Oh,
right
you got to
now?
think, if you're thinking the moon, we're going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the landing of Apollo 11 on the moon this summer. So stay tuned for information on that. Just keep our website on a permanent bookmark.
I just have to tell you quickly.
Yes.
So my grandmother, who died many years ago, was born in 1876. And so she lived through the Wright brothers airplane through to the landing on the moon. And I remember sitting on the back porch of my home at the time with my grandmother watching this thing on TV, because it was on TV all around the world, and she just was agape. To have lived that life, to have seen the first person fly, to watching the first person walk on the moon in her own lifetime, one lifetime, was so astonishing. And I think now, years later, we kind of lose sight of the fact that this was a remarkable feat.
Yeah. I've got a canceled postcard that was at Kennedy Space Center the day of I think it was the launch of Apollo 11. I think it was either canceled on July 16th or July 20th of '69. I can't remember. But it's whoever wrote the postcard said something like, how amazing from the first airplane to the moon in less than 70 years.
Well, and believe it or not, speaking of time, we're out of it. So, Michelle, thank you so much for being here.
It's always a lot of fun. Thank you.
It is, and we'll have you back. In the meantime, I have to get down to the planetarium and see
come
all
by.
this stuff, right?
Yep.
So thank you again for being our guest tonight.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us once again on Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. You can find us every Saturday night at 8 on Comcast Channel 19, or see us on the web at publicperspective.tv. So till next time, thank you and good night.